If growing your business using social media and handling DM conversations put your stomach in knots, this hot seat mega episode is for you. In this series, you'll hear from coaches who are practically allergic to social media, who want to focus on getting local doctor referrals, and who feel confused about all of the typical local networking advice since it isn't getting them clients. Jonathan helps them figure out what local networking will look like for them since each business is unique and how to build better relationships with those that they meet. I'll be back at the end to recommend another episode. Enjoy.
Benny, you are up, my friend. So, Benny, same thing. Real quick, who you are, who you work with, what we're talking about today.
Hi guys, so I'm Benny. I'm based in Ireland. I work with career-driven men over 30 who want to trim down, get stronger, and regain their confidence. And that's the avatar that I work with. I've been coaching for close to 3 years now, but I'm not coaching full time. So I had been previously, but I got a government job that's 9 to 5. I'm coaching online and I also coach in person. So I'm currently doing like 16, 17-hour days, which is why I joined OTM to try get out of that and get out of in person and fully online.
Cool. What are we talking about today, man?
So what I wanted to talk about was trying to grow within my community and trying to establish more leads within my community. One thing I am not good at and really dislike is the DMing. It's something I just haven't taken a liking to, and just can't bring myself to it. The majority of my followers are local people who I know from my community. I would say 90% of my clients are also people from my community that I would know in some way or another, or they would know me. So to DM them just feels very salesy, which just doesn't sit with me. What I wanted to do is just trying to figure out how I can establish myself further within the community to generate more sales from that. Because I have a certain level of trust within the community. I've played high-level sports here in Ireland, so I'd be relatively well known. So I have some sort of trust level within my community, which has definitely helped me. Like my sales, once I get someone onto a call, like my sales is over 70% once I have someone on a call. So the trust factor is there, but it's getting more of that in.
Who is it you work with?
So career-driven men over 30.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know we joked a lot about your sports. Well, so part of where my head's going to all of these things right now, and I'm not saying any of them because you're already doing, you just have no hours. Like, and so it has to be very, very pinpointed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a trade-off. Like it seems to me like there's some stuff that you kind of just like can't even think about, like probably social media. You just, if you really loved it, I think that would be different. But you don't really. But you keep talking. I think you said the word "my own community" at least 4 times. Like that tells me something.
Yeah.
And that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really cool to be able to lean into that a little bit. So let's play around with this a tiny bit. You can see, you can tell me how this feels. Is that cool?
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you any answers. I'm just going to give you some questions here to think about.
Yeah, that's good.
Career-driven men over 30, a lot of them have kids, right? You have this background in sports. A lot of their kids probably play sports.
Yes.
What is a way to build trust, ingratiate yourself to these men and give them a reason to basically stop what they're doing and like spend time with you in some way? Have you ever thought about some sort of volunteer or even like towards charity type event
Mhm.
where you put their kids through training camps.
Mhm. Nothing along the lines of the kids. What I had considered was something for the dads to run a kind of free community event out in the community area where the kids would be training. So the dads would be there, or the mothers would be there, and offer like a free initiative for them to come in and
Well,
train for the hour while their kids are there.
here's something cool. Do you have a buddy you could do this with?
Yeah.
What about if you did something where the kids, because I love that idea, and I've always wondered, like my kids aren't old enough to really do sports yet, but my sisters
Mhm.
are. And you go there and all the parents are like sitting around while the kids are playing soccer or whatever,
Mhm.
football, whatever, right? And is there an opportunity then? Because I love the idea of trying to organize something where the kids are involved and the parents are
Mhm.
involved and they both go there for that. Like if you try to organize something for the parents, they're never going to make time for it.
Okay.
It's just, I mean, I'm a busy, just, over 30 dad with a couple young kids. Like I can tell you right now that there is no way in hell that I would show up if you said, hey, there's like a training thing. But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that if you put signs up around my neighborhood that said um, something to the tune of, hey, I played, this professional sport. I want to get back to our community. And also I want to donate to charity. And so here's what I'm doing this Saturday at this park.
Mhm.
Uh, we're doing a training camp for the kids for free, and then a charity workout for the parents
Okay.
at the same time. Donate what you can, whatever. Uh, uh, Advised donation or is 20 quid, whatever.
Mhm.
But I don't know if that would work or not.
Mhm.
But I can tell you right now that if my wife saw that sign on a flagpole or on a post, she'd take a picture of it and she'd send it to me and say, we have to do this.
Okay.
And she would also send that to like my sister and some of her friends who live in the
Yeah.
neighborhood and tell our neighbors about it. And what a cool way to get back to the community.
Mhm.
Um, but also just like your goal here is to become trusted amongst these people
Mhm.
and get to know as many of them as you can. And you really don't have much time,
Mhm.
but you do have a couple hours on a weekend.
Yeah.
But you don't have time to sit there and DM and be on calls and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Uh, so then, your buddy runs the thing for the kids. You run the workout for the parents,
Yeah.
and you donate money to a charity that you care about.
Mhm.
Uh, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How does that? How does that? Tell
Yeah.
me.
I
Tell me
love.
what you feel hearing that. That's not a fully fleshed out concept, but
Yeah. No, I love the idea of that, trying to incorporate that in where you can work with the kids and also work with the parents. And you're kind of trying to figure it out that way. Definitely a concept I can see myself trying to flesh out and adapt.
like it'd be fun. And you never
Mhm.
know. The thing with that is you never know what it'll turn into as well.
Mhm.
Like, hey, I don't know what kind of response it would get, but I think it's definitely worth trying.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you have some fun over the weekend,
Yeah.
um, and move around a bit and get to meet some people.
Yeah.
But it could also, that type of thing morphs into other stuff. I think
Mhm.
that's something that I want to talk about more, is that motion begets motion, right? Like when you start doing stuff, you start to have ideas of what this could be,
Mhm.
and they start to morph into something that you never could have anticipated. Like maybe this thing will grow and people love the kids camps, and all of a sudden now you're just like, running these great kids camps. Maybe like this thing happens the first time, call up your local news reporters the second time you're doing it. Hey, want to know how we got the community active and donated 300 pounds to the local food bank? Shit, now you got local reporters there interviewing you.
Yeah.
Who knows what that's going to turn into? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But but you're not DMing.
No.
Right?
Not to the level I need to be. No.
Yeah. Let's play around with that concept.
Yeah. It's my mind's just been pulled in a million different directions of what to do. Like, is it a podcast and interview all these kind of high achievers in the community? No. Is it go the community based with the kids and the parents? Yeah. You said
the word give back to my community or be a part of my community like 4 times. Like, you got to be out there shaking hands, man. Maybe at some point, you know, you'll do a podcast in that, but similar to the first conversation that we had on this call, right? It's podcast and content and stuff like that are great. Obviously, they're great, but they're long-term solutions. And right now, you're working 16 hours a day. You don't need to add in another hour every day for something that's going to pay off 2 years from now. That's the type of thing I look at content, I look at podcasts and that as largely a savings account where when you have excess funds, when you have excess time, you invest into it. Not needing any short-term withdrawals. Knowing that over time it will compound and pay back. So once you do this and it starts going good and you have a lot more free time, then you can start playing around with concepts like that if you want to. Yeah. Right. If you want to.
No, that's sweet.
Yeah, man. Play around with it. I would just rip the Band-Aid off. Just like, if there's a big park by you that you know is always empty on the weekend, I'm sure you got some pylons. Like, it's not, you don't need anything other than that. Just print up, like, do it this weekend. Do it next weekend. Just print up a bunch of signs and just run around the neighborhood. Put up 100 signs on the different poles. Go into the local coffee shops. Go into the local pubs, whatever it is. They all have like message boards. Just put your signs up in every single one of them. And in all of them, just have an email that just says, message me to reserve your spot, your spot and your child's spot. Just see what happens.
And just toy with that idea.
Make it up as you go, dude. Like, it'll turn into something, but you don't know what it is. Even like how to run the kids practice and how to run your parents. Like, I mean, how hard is it? You know these drills. Where it might get hard is like if you want to give like an age range for the kids, but where it might get hard is if you have 5-year-olds and 12-year-olds. So you could either be specific or you could just know when you have drills that there's going to be like a range of people. I mean, when people message you, you say, oh, how old are your kids? Right?
No, that's awesome. That's awesome, John. Thank you very much.
Okay, cool. So Ashley or Justin, whichever one, I don't know who's taking the lead here to speak, but we've done this before. You know the routine. So real quick, again, kind of who you are for folks who haven't yet met you and what you do, and then what we're talking about today.
Sure. Sorry, I'm sick. I have minimal voice here. So we are a husband-wife team who co-own Level Up Strength and Nutrition. And our signature program is the Muscle Mommy Method. And we work with moms of young kids to ditch the toxic diet culture and get stronger and more confident than they ever have before. So Paul's kind of spoke to me there. We got a collab, Paul. And what we just had our legacy one-on-one with Jason Maxwell. And when we were talking, we got into that almost every single lead that we're getting in is through in-person networking and through medical referrals from local medical professionals that we know. So I guess kind of suggestions on how to
How do we put it to use? How do we leverage those?
how to more leverage the in-person networking.
Right.
We have a physical therapist who wants to offboard his clients to us.
Cool.
Like, that's obviously not muscle mommy method for me, but as a pain-free performance
Right.
specialist,
Working on that.
working on like
Awesome.
what that kind of referral system should look like for us and how to be successful.
Well, yeah. So what type of physicians are these? That's my first question.
So
There's a mix.
I have an OBGYN who refers her weight loss women to me who do not qualify for Ozempic, because that's what most women are going to her for.
Okay.
So that goes really well into my signature program.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a
We've got a physical therapist that I was looking at working with. Again, offboarding his clients, people who insurance isn't covering their PT care anymore, but he wants them to continue
Okay.
with the exercise. So he found us as somebody that he would trust to do that. The question with that situation is, do we need a different signature program? Do we coach these people for a number of sessions, roll them straight into legacy? I don't know what would be best.
yeah.
Yeah, because they're going to be all over the place, right?
Right.
And they're going to need much more specific support. Okay. Any other physicians?
Functional medicine?
We have a
kind of?
functional medicine doctor who also uses us as well. So again, that's different from necessary. I mean, the women there, because I specialize in PCOS as well, and a lot of women PCOS see the functional medicine doctor kind of on board into legacy pretty well for me.
Yeah.
It's more just the I guess the physical therapist side for him.
Mhm.
And then, you know, as we grow in the community, what the best way is to coach these.
Well, the physiotherapy one, I'll answer that a little bit differently, because
Sure.
if you have excess time and capacity to do it now, my response to that kind of stuff is usually like, yeah, I'll take it on until it breaks and then figure out how to fix it after it breaks.
Okay.
Like, I mean, should you build an entirely new program for these people? No, because you don't really know how many of them there are going to be yet. You know, this physical therapist says that he or she is going to send you these people, and hopefully they do, and hopefully there's a lot of people, and hopefully it's ongoing for a long time. But all of that is hopefully right now.
Great.
And so I'm okay with that kind of stuff. It sounds like good opportunity for it to be like manual and more conventional, I guess, training. I mean, you have your systems for communication and for onboarding and stuff like that. Most of it can be made to be pretty generalized. It would just be the training programs would be different and unique. And if it gets to the point where there's too much of an influx, well, you can bring on another trainer who specializes, or maybe even you bring on your own physio who is a fitness first physio, because I know there's a lot of them who works remotely, who can work with these people and who would work with them as more conventional clients as part of your team. I don't know if that's the right solution or not, but to me, whenever I hear stuff like that, it's like, well, let's just figure out where this breaks first before we try to build a plan of how to fix the holes before there are holes. I'm a big believer in let's wait till stuff bursts at the seams. It's way easier to solve problems when you have excess money and excess clients than it is to try to solve problems before you have any of those things. So talk to me about how you feel about that kind of, because that might not have been the expected response.
No, that wasn't even something we thought about, because
No.
we're both overthinkers, which
Right.
was the outcome of our last hot seat.
Yep.
But like, you know, like my brain automatically goes to, well, we need to spend all this time building a program and a different welcome package for them, when really like it's not that deep. Maybe like, yeah, once we have like 50 clients from this guy, which would be amazing,
Sure.
you know, then we start building those separate systems, or we have a VA that helps us do that stuff at that point.
I mean, it might get to that point, or it might not. I've
Or might
done
not.
consults for online training companies with 15, 20 coaches. And I mean, they've got a Google Sheet spreadsheet. They send Google Sheets to their clients via links. Like it's wholly disorganized. And so, you know, they're now coming to me with 15 coaches and 300, 400 clients saying, hey, how do we fix this? But, but that's far down the road. And they're in a position to fix it. And of course, have the means and have the reason to do it. So that's what I would say. That in terms of the doctors, I know you wrote on your form here kind of the difference of like, hey, you seem to be putting like a ton of effort into online, into Instagram specifically, but you're not getting a ton out of it. But then you have these relationships personally that seem to be doing well.
Online personal training mentorship, just pretty much doing training online.
There we go. And I thought that was you for a second.
I was really confused.
And my voice got really deep there for a
Your
second.
voice got really deep there for a second. And so I always wonder with these doctors, like, can you make their lives easier? I mean, they're referring you, which is wonderful. Can you be the one providing handouts in their staff room? Right? Like, you're creating a piece of content on Instagram. Why not just create that piece of content?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And send it to them, and also send it to other doctors in the mail and say, hey, we're already working with Dr. So-and-so, who's referring us clients, PCOS clients who do not qualify for Ozempic. And here's what they have to say. You know, oh my God, these people are amazing. Some testimonial here and there. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to provide you something for your staff room. Have a look.
Really good idea.
Yeah.
It's good. And that way, at least it's a way to give them a benefit, because you know how these physicians always are. I mean, they are just over busy, but the waiting room in a doctor's office is such a captive area. It's like, I always joke, it's like the only more captive area is the space above the urinal in the guy's bathroom. It's like, you will read anything that is above that place, right? Same kind of thing in the waiting room in like a doctor's office.
Especially at OBGYN offices with a bunch of pregnant women.
I mean, I've been in fertility clinics, so
Yeah.
that's a whole different animal where you don't want to ask anybody questions about anything.
Yeah.
How does that sound to you? How does that land to you?
I like that a lot, and wasn't even something we considered as far as then using that connection to reach out to all the other physicians in the area too. Like, hey, we're already working with Dr. Patel. Like, these are the success stories.
It's got to be a small network of female specific, I'll call it women specific doctors in your area. I mean, if they don't know one another, they would know of one another. I got it.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Then they each carry their own weight, and I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then put you all into that relationship, those relationships.
Instead of spinning my wheels on social media, that isn't really getting me any clients.
Well, you're creating the content anyway.
Right.
You're just putting the content in a different place. You're putting the content in a place where you're the only piece of content that people are going to read.
That's true.
And what you can even do is, you could brand it to them. You can put their doctor's name. Like you can create one piece of material on what would you do? Give me just like throw out one idea.
Short weight loss with PCOS.
So weight loss with PCOS done the healthy way for life, right? So you create one great piece of content like that, but you create it kind of as a template. All you got to do is go on a doctor's website and you can find their name, their number, their email, and you can put, prepared by you guys, your information, of course, at the bottom with a call to action at the end of it. But then you put the doctor's office name on it too.
So do you recommend reaching out to those people first and asking if it's okay, or just making it and sending it their way? Surprise, here's content.
We signed my kid up for this sports camp called True North Sports Camps. And one day a sign just shows up on my lawn that says, "My child is attending True North Sports Camps." And I just looked at Allison and I was like, those fucking guys. Well done. Because like, what's the worst that could happen? I don't want your sign on my lawn. I'm just going to throw it in the garbage. I'm not going to unenroll my kid in sports camp.
Sure.
And so what's the worst that could happen? You do this great gesture for them and you put their name on it and make their life easy. And they're like, nah, we don't really want to use this. And they put it in the recycling.
Yeah.
It cost you a
And then
stamp and a couple.
But now they know our name.
Now they know your name. And I would continue following up with stuff.
Okay.
Like I would just keep doing it. They might message you. I would try to reach out to them. I mean, I wonder whether there's some networking something. We don't have time to really dive into it, but I wonder whether there's some networking way that you can like connect the doctors to one another in the neighborhood. There's a book that I'll recommend. It's called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. It's kind of one of the
It's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're familiar with it. So he tells a story in that book about, I can't remember what it was, but it was like CTOs. It was like tech leaders in local businesses. And it was this guy who sold the software solution to them and became the best seller nationwide really quickly. And all that he would do he would just call up the CTOs of all of the companies in town. And he would just invite them to breakfast to meet the other CTOs. And he'd sit there and there'd be 4 of them. And he'd say, "Hey guys, this is your breakfast. I'm just here to pay the bill. Like y'all get to know each other." And that was all he did, because what he realized is that there's these people who are pretty isolated from one another. And they really like being able to talk shop, but nobody's given them the opportunity. And so I wonder whether there's an opportunity with that too. I don't know how receptive or not receptive they would be. I mean, physicians are generally pretty overbusy people. But they might jump at the opportunity to meet others outside of a conference setting. I don't know. Cool.
Thank
Okay.
you. No, that's all really good advice.
Yeah, this will be fun. I like this approach, and I'm glad that you've already seen some benefits from it. Miles, go for it, dude.
Hey man. Yeah, so I brought up the in-person network because I think the last time I was on one of these calls, you've pushed that on, like you told me that's like a good, especially at my following. I don't have like a huge following to lean into that. And I know, your podcast, all your content, that's a thing you've been talking about a lot. So I've been trying to do more of that. I've, been going to networking events. I've, been asking my clients. I'm trying to do lunch and learns. I haven't exactly gotten heavy on that. So, but I know I just get ideas from like other coaches. Like I know Luca is huge into that. I don't know if that's like the best use of my time, but it's an option. So I'm kind of scattered in that way.
Right.
So I'm not exactly sure where to start.
Ashley, talk about what you brought up last time on one of these calls.
About meeting people at
The
bookstore.
book talk. The book talk. You can choose to describe what book talk is or isn't if you want.
I mean, doesn't everybody know what book talk
I
is?
had no idea what it was. I had to Google it and I regretted Googling it.
It's the place of TikTok where all the spicy book people live. Anyway, it's very niched, but Miles, I have found just going to like local bookstores and cafes and places where the people that I want to coach hang out, like the places where the weird people like me are. And just talking to them, talking to the business owners. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to local bookstores and kind of setting up networks there to then bring them onto social media and nurture and sell from social media there.
Yeah, which I love. I love a couple parts of that. Number one is you're going out and you're making it happen. Like you're not depending on anybody else happening. But what you're doing is you're using social media not as a discovery mechanism. You're using it more as a nurture mechanism, as a collecting place, which I actually think for the majority of people doing business the way that we do business, basically anybody who's not trying to be famous on the internet, but trying to leverage social media to build a business, I actually think that that is a much more efficient, straightforward, easier and fast acting approach. I think that social media is a phenomenal job, or is a phenomenal place to bring like-minded people together and perhaps attract other people via that platform into your community. That will naturally happen, but not depending on it for that. Instead, finding people who are like-minded around probably, yeah, some geeky obsession outside and bringing them there. And using that as a place to nurture them and communicate and build a community. And I mean, even just like organize events and whatever. And that doesn't even need to be social media. That could be a WhatsApp group. I mean, I give the example in the Obvious Choice book of, I call her Janet. It's not a real name, but her entire training business. Now, she's not an online trainer, but her entire training business is training older women, like retired women, grandmothers, that she met. She originally met them going to a bridge game. And in the most unsurprising turn of events ever, she was the youngest person there. And she built a community of these women from this bridge game, and her entire community is a single WhatsApp group. She has no email, she has nothing else, and they all pay her in cash. And so it could be like a WhatsApp group, it could be a Telegram channel. Like it doesn't have to be Instagram, it doesn't have to be a Facebook group. It's whatever is most natural to that community. With these women, WhatsApp works great because all of these women are communicating to their kids who don't live around there through WhatsApp. So they're already on WhatsApp. So that's why it works for them. But the idea, I think, starts, Miles. I mean, lunch and learn's fine. Like, whatever. To me, it's just not interesting. I think they can work. There's a friend of mine, his name's Igor Klebanov, runs a big remote training business in Toronto. There's a bunch of trainers working for him. And he speaks at companies. And he does like 50 talks a year at different companies. And he'll do like lunch talks and stuff like that. And he's built a really, really good system for 5 or 6 different talks on different things. He's built a community of HR people at these companies. He knows exactly how to generate leads. He knows exactly how to make an offer from these talks because he's done it for like a decade. This is the entire way that he builds his business. And he's all in on this. And so it can work, but it doesn't work if you just do them every so often. It only works if you're like what Igor does. And he's just like, this is basically how he builds his business. And then he has trainers that he sends around when they get hired. But I think the more straightforward approach and the more fun approach, to be honest, is to do something like what Ashley is doing. People hire trainers because of the 1% that makes them different, not the 99% that makes them the same. Bro, who gives a shit if you can talk about reducing your odds of diabetes to Hewlett Packard's, Mississauga division? Like, how many people could give that 45-minute talk if they wanted to? And so why would anybody choose you? Just because you happen to be there and they happen to be wanting to hire somebody? That could work. Again, that does work if that's your business model and you become really, really good at that. Or you could appeal to people based off of the 1% that makes you different. Like the book talk communities. And then in doing that, you go out and you build the community around that thing. I give the example in the book. This is a thought experiment, but I give the example in the book. I'm like, if I owned a flower shop, I would create a series of categorical awards for the best gardens within 20 miles of my home. And then I would go to I would host a yearly award gala, and I would get other companies. I would have a gala. I would get other companies to sponsor the gala and whatever, because everybody wants to be part of an event if there's an actual event going on. And I would go and I would literally just give awards to people who have the best gardens. And I would give them signs to put on their thing that they won the awards. And it would say my flower shop, because people who have great gardens buy flowers, and people who don't have great gardens probably don't buy flowers. And from that, you could organize things like a community garden or neighborhood cleanups or whatever. The point is, for people who are into that thing, you would be the center of that community. But this has got to be the type of thing that you're kind of all in on. It's pretty hard to do otherwise. So let me ask you, what's outside of lifting stuff up and putting it down, give or take 8 to 10 times, and losing count at about 6?
Well, up until, let's say, 6 months ago, I was very much involved in the Latin dance community here in Toronto. And I was just doing that for fun. I wasn't even doing that for business or anything like that. But I have gotten clients from that community. But I stopped doing that just because I wanted to go all in. I just wanted to focus on business right now. But in the back of my mind, it's like I'm thinking, hey, I missed this thing, but I also have a community. So I was thinking maybe I could hit two birds with one stone.
So how would you do it? How would you tackle that?
Well, if I can start going back to these, I was taking classes, I was very deep in this community, and I was getting them into my network, on social media. So you're saying nurturing, they get to see my stuff that I'm doing, and then they get interested in that and have conversations from there.
Yeah, I mean, so you're not participating now. What were you doing, call it a year ago, to participate in that world?
I was doing classes, I was traveling, I was a performer.
Yeah. So you've got a pretty good network.
Yeah.
And in Toronto, you've got a pretty good network.
Yeah.
Where do people go? I mean, is it mostly classes? I know there's different nights at different clubs and things like that. Where do people go? This is a world that I don't know much about, so educate me a little bit. Where do people hang out that are interested in this?
There's a lot of classes. There's a lot of studios around the city scattered around. There's these socials where people on a Friday or a Sunday night, they'll go out, just practice their moves, dance.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then, a couple times a year, there's the huge festivals and, people gather around. It's a huge community.
It's a huge community. We had a student before, Joe Messina, who was super involved. Joe, yeah. He built a really good, nice business out of that. And it actually started with that. It was he was a performer, him and his wife. I think before it was his wife, but now his wife. And it was basically like getting women just like looking and feeling rocking that were dancing. And that was his original. I can't remember. They even had like a name of their group um, that he did. If it's something that you miss, that's a good sign. I mean, I have this with baseball cards. I missed it and something kind of reignited it. And I decided to get involved in a business with it. And it's been interesting, the people who I've connected with around baseball cards that have become really, really important connections for me outside of the fitness industry. But, you know, folks who I meet up with professionally, and it would otherwise be a very benign professional conversation, but I'll bring something up and I'll kind of hint at it to see whether they had interest. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, and you know, I'm a part owner in a company in the baseball card space. You know, it's just like something that I do. And immediately there's like memories of their childhood or whatever it is. Not always, but those people who I connect with on that, like the founder of Comic-Con, like I'll text him back and forth now. And that would never have happened if we didn't connect in it, because him and his brother and his family like open up packs of cards on the weekends. Like that's what they do every single weekend. I would never known that. I met him at a professional event. Right? We were talking about who knows what, entrepreneur stuff, whatever, boring stuff. It's surprising when I show parts of myself that I even sometimes am otherwise embarrassed about. It's surprising how many people share that or know somebody who shares that, who they make an introduction to. Is there an opportunity? Again, it's hard for me because I don't know that world at all, but is there an opportunity to be the organizer of either events or even media? You know, like some podcast devoted to Latin dancing in Toronto, for example. You're not going to get a lot of listeners, but what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to interview the studio owners and profile them, and they're going to send it out to their studio. And by the way, the podcast is sponsored by your training company, which is the I don't know, the Sexy Dancer Fitness Academy. Better name than that. That name sucks, but like something like that. You know what I'm saying? And then this podcast is by you, and there's an advertisement in there. Like, if that's your thing and you really miss it and you love that community and you love just geeking out about it, like if it's the type of thing that you could have the same conversation multiple times a week with different people and not get bored, you know, talk about the same move, talk about foot placement, technique, whatever. I think you probably attack it and mix those. And I mean, you will find that, yeah, people will come to you because you're like a dance guy, but like the training won't be about that. Like, you know that. It's like when a guy came to me wanting to get his PGA tour card, a golfer. This is years back. And he got his tour card, and like most people who get their tour card, I mean, they don't really go anywhere, and you don't make any money unless you're like top 50. So he played on the tour in and out for a couple years. But like beyond the initial 12 weeks, it was a training client like any training client. But the reason that he came to me is literally because I put up a poster and started promoting myself as a golf fitness expert. No, I did the work. At that point, I read every study on PubMed about golf fitness. There's a lot more now. This was 2008, but why people come to you is going to be different than, you know, the ongoing training.
Yeah, it's like you're able to stick out more in the sea of all these online coaches, that's the 1% thing that makes you stick out. So, and I definitely know that this podcast, like this idea, does not exist out there yet. So something to that effect is what I'm getting.
I mean, a podcast, I love awards. I think awards are a really underutilized marketing asset because you can just make this shit up. Like you can just make up any award for anything ever. And no matter what you do and give somebody, they're going to be so proud of it and show it off.
So it's
You could just get like I don't know. I mean, I created an award years ago that I gave away on my blog for a couple years that I called the Jug, which was the John Award for recognizing greatness, that I literally gave away to people who recognized I was great. Like I just gave it to people who profiled me because I wanted more people to profile me. And so then they just profiled me again because I gave them an award. Like it's like dumb stuff. I mean, this was pure idiocy.
like this thing.
Yeah, right. Like, a little stupid like dollar bill with me pointing at you. Which that picture actually has another funny story associated to it. That's kind of an inner joke in our company, which is why we keep using it. But tell you that when we meet up. But this series of, I mean, dude, organize like the Latin Dancing Business Awards. Started at night, get the gym that you work at, like rent the space from them or ask them to use the space. And it'll grow from there. But I think that there's a lot more that we can do to be creative. I mean, I think a podcast is wonderful. And I think a podcast as a networking tool is seriously underutilized. Because how else, if you were to call up the owner of, there's a lot of dancing studios in Toronto. I see them all. I don't see them all. I see them. But how else could you easily contact the owner and be like, I want to interview you? Or I want an hour of your time basically to get to know you and be friends with you. So that way you refer me all of your clients for fitness. If you feature them on a podcast about leaders in the Latin dancing community, and then the same type of thing, you ask them about the physiotherapists that they refer their people to if they have any injuries, and then you profile the physiotherapist in that works with a lot of dancers that are rehabbing injuries. And then you become the referred source for that physiotherapist. The same thing with chiro. Like you just see how this starts to spiral. What are charities associated with this? Anytime that you see any kind of an event that a charity supports it, get the person involved in the charity because they're probably well connected in that world too. And profile them. And it's largely a networking tool, but then you just give them the sources to share that to their people. And again, you're not going to get a lot of listens. It's going to play on your mind because you're not going to get a lot of downloads. You're not going to get a lot of listens, but like, this is why, like, I have no idea how many downloads there are. I have no idea how many people listen to the Obvious Choice podcast. I've never looked at the numbers once. It's completely irrelevant to me.
It's a long gameplay.
Well, the goal is very different than just abstract listens. It's very specifically for a certain type of person. And so is it driving business? Yes. So it's doing what it needs to do. Are we having fun? Does it help me explore and build, write better books and explore ideas? 100%. If I was in your shoes, is it helping me build the best network on the planet of leaders in the Latin dance community? Holy shit, man. Like, think about, obviously there's think about all of the different people, right? You have the owners of the studios, you have the organizers of the events, you of course have the top competitors. But then you have the physios, the chiros, the masseuses, that you can easily get introduced to. And they can talk about common treatments, what Latin did. And then all of this, what all of this is doing is giving you the best Rolodex and making you the obvious choice to be referred whenever any of these people need fitness. And you can say to them straight up, like, look, I've got this coaching service. I help dancers get into the best shape of their lives, both to dance better and also to avoid injury and to look better and have more energy for their family. Like straight up, if you know anybody, like, please send them my way. And perhaps there is a gathering place or a community for that. You could invite them to like a Telegram channel or something, or a WhatsApp group. And then I love the awards thing. So, I mean, I would probably start locally just because those are the people you know. But I think in a world like that, it's got to be so insular. Like, you got to see the same people at the competitions, and
It is. It's the same people, studios, and the same people at the top here.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you could do that for any niche. I mean, Greg's doing that for surfers because it's kind of similar. I mean, it's similar in that they're all over the place, but it's also similar in that, you know, the people who are into it are really into it. It's different in that surfing is kind of by definition in like remote parts of the world, like very far away from one another. And they even often don't tell people where they're going because they don't want people there. So maybe it's a little bit different that way. But what he's done that's been really great is, yes, of course, the owners of the surf resorts, but also like physiotherapist on the north of Kauai that works with surfers. Right? And it will allow you to kind of scratch both itches, which I think is something you might be needing.
It sounds way more fun than a lunch and learn.
I mean, it like, I don't know. I don't need to shit on lunch and learns, but I'm gonna shit on lunch and learns. Like, nobody wants to do those, man. Like, they're just not exciting. The people who are at them largely don't want to be there. I mean, it's just, and like I said, it could generate some business, but you're kind of begging people to show up versus having people say, "Oh my God, can I show up? Can I be on your podcast? Hey," I mean, the listenership that you're going to start to build is going to be small but mighty, and people connected. There's a fun little like dot matrix chart that I drew in the book that's basically like, most people do business like this. You've got, I don't know how well you could see it. Can you see it? Probably not. You've got basically like 9 dots that are not connected. When you work with communities that are interconnected, what starts to happen is something like this. People know each other. And you'll start having folks in the community. I mean, you can ask him at the end of a recording with somebody, hey, you know, who else do you think would be a great fit for this? Oh, cool. Do you mind making an introduction? That's quite literally a referral. A referral is a passage of trust. Them introducing you to their friend who runs another studio or organizes said event or whatever it is them passing on their trust, referring you.
I think this is one thing that spurred my comment to your post yesterday too, was like, I knew like I had to ask more people, but it's asking the right people. So this, what you talked about now just brought that to light to me. So
So
I have this community.
Here's your assignment. Can I give you an assignment?
Sure, please.
I don't know how podcasts go to space. Amber does all of that. I talk into a computer and then she makes it go to space. So, number one, figure out how to make a podcast go to space. I think it's just you talking to your computer and record it, and then it goes to Libsyn, and Libsyn like zaps it out to all the different platforms. But I don't know how that's set up. But enough people who have done that are not as smart as you that I'm sure you can figure that out in about 5 minutes. So start a podcast by the end of this week, and I want you to have your first 3 guests booked. You're going to call the podcast The Best of Latin Dance. It's a shit name, but you can change it. But all you need is a name. You're going to go on Fiverr.com, and you're going to hire somebody, and you're going to pay him $20, and you're going to get him to create podcast art for you. That's called The Best of Latin Dance. It's going to have a picture of you on there. It's going to have The Best of Latin Dance really front and center. And then it's going to have presented by, and it's going to be your coaching company name on that photo. You should be able to have that from Fiverr like by tomorrow.
Yeah.
Again, you can change it. It's not going to be good, but it doesn't matter. Because all you need to invite somebody to a podcast is literally a photo and a name of a podcast. And you're going to reach out to, you're going to book 3 guests, ideally record next week, but you're going to book 3 guests by the end of the week for an interview about what they're doing that's so special in the Latin dance community. And I'm sure you have a good network, but a studio owner, maybe some sort of health practitioner in that space, could be dancer who's good, could be even a dancer who's not very good, but just really loves it and is all in. Like, what you want from your early adopters is you want people who can't shut up about a thing. Whether they have a big audience or not yet is a lot less relevant early on, because somebody who has a big audience is not going to be the first guest on your podcast. Somebody who has a studio might be. But you can be a bit of like a talent scout in that what you're actually choosing for is you're choosing for people who are loud. If you reverse engineer what you want here, it's basically word of mouth. You want people talking for you, recommending other people go and listen to this thing. So who do you know that almost to an annoying extent talks about their dancing? Whether anybody's listening or not is almost less relevant.
I already know who these 3 people are. Like
Yep.
I know exactly.
Okay. Send me a message by the end of the day Friday, and you don't need to say anything in it. Just say booked. Cool.
Cool.
Cool. That was fun. Love it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Amber here. Thanks for listening in. This episode was from a series of group calls from Jonathan's online trainer mentorship, where we host hot seats every 2 weeks. The mentorship is where we take anyone doing from $1,000 to $20,000 a month or more and help them scale up. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in learning more about, please DM the word mentor to Jonathan on Instagram @itscoachgoodman. If you're looking for another episode to listen to right now, I'd recommend episode 211, Design Charity Events that Benefit Your Community and Business. Putting on a charity event can feel good, do good, and be good for business. In this episode, you'll learn how to choose a charity that makes the biggest impact, how to get your community to rally behind and promote the event, and how to follow up with attendees after the event and make an offer without feeling icky. Again, that's episode 211, Design Charity Events that Benefit Your Community and Business. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next week.